you guys are in the back row, just a reminder, make sure your phone is off. All the way off, please.
We are here on the record in case number 676346, State of Ohio versus Charles Wright Jr. We are here for the purpose of sentencing. There was a little bit delay in starting the sentencing because I did want to give the opportunity for both parties to review documents I received. In this case, specifically, I did receive emails that were printed by my staff attorney. These emails were sent to my staff attorney in support of the defendant. One was from his sister, one was from his uncle, and one was from a childhood friend. I have reviewed those documents as well as the sentencing memorandum that was filed by the State of Ohio. So we will begin with the State of Ohio.
Thank you, Your Honor. I did outline for the court with respect to which counts merge for the purposes of sentencing here today in the counts of the State of Ohio, which is to proceed on sentencing. So the State of Ohio elects that this court proceed to sentence the defendant on count 1, aggravated murder, counts 6, 9, 12, 14, 16, 18, and 20. Those are all attempted murders. And count 24, which is having a weapon under disability, and count 22, which is discharge of a firearm over a roadway. The minimum sentence that this court could impose would be life with parole eligibility after 26 years. That would be a sentence of life with parole eligibility after 20 years, plus 2 of the most serious firearm specifications. These were all 3-year firearm specifications. So that would be a minimum of a sentence of life with parole eligibility after 26 years. I don't think that this defendant warrants a minimum sentence, Your Honor. When you look at this case, you're familiar with it. You sat through the trial. You were the trier of the facts for some of these counts. This is a mass shooting. These are the type of offenses that make national news every day. And just because this is at the corner of Phillips and East 123rd in an inner city neighborhood in Cleveland doesn't make the lives of these people any less important. For Mr. Gunn, for Reacha Carroll, for Josh Joyner, and any of the other people whose lives this man put at risk when he just opened fire and hunted for his target in this tiny little store. This isn't somebody who should be released back out in our community. When you look at his criminal history, it goes back almost 30 years. And that's just in the Court of Common Pleas cases. Attempted aggravated robbery, drug possession, felonious assault, drug trafficking, aggravated assault, drug trafficking, a prior conviction for having a weapon under disability, another felonious assault, burglary, domestic violence, attempted burglary. He's been sent to prison before, and clearly those sanctions were not enough to turn him around and make him a law-abiding citizen. He's a danger to our community, and he inflicted a lot of pain on this family here, on Mr. Gunn's family, and I know that they want to address the court. You have a lot of leeway here. In my sentencing memorandum, Judge, I included the fact that, yes, he is a repeat violent offender. You found him to be a repeat violent offender. We're not asking that you necessarily invoke that additional 10 years that you can do, because I think you're not going to be able to make those findings given the fact that you have so many charges. There are 3 people who actually suffered serious physical harm, here in this case. And I think you can fashion a sentence, even just on the aggravated murder count, that's more than the minimum. Doesn't demean the fact that he put so many people at risk, that an innocent man lost his life, and that all of these victims in this case were innocent. They weren't doing anything to this guy. He wasn't threatened in any way. He just came in there and just started unloading, and that's just not someone who's fit to be back out in our community with a minimum sentence. So Mr. Gunn's daughter would like to address the court.
Ma'am, I'm not sure if the microphone is on, there's a little button on the side. Great. So if you just state your name and then spell it for the record, please.
Ciara Bryson, CIARA BRYSON.
Thank you.
22136. That's the last memory I have of my father. That's the number of homicides that happened in Cleveland, Ohio, his being 136 in the year of 2022. Selflessness is concerned more with your needs than the wishes of others, with one's own unselfish ways. That's how I can describe my father. He was someone that would help everyone in the community. I had never been to that store prior to the day it happened, but so many people came up to me. They said I had his whole face, and they just showed me love, and I was so grateful for that. I can't believe that this happened for somebody that was just in a store putting away beer or just doing anything that would help himself. He was helping others as well as himself. I just want to tell the court today that I don't hate anyone. I'm just upset that it happened the way that it happened. Everybody has flaws. Everybody does things that they wish they could take back. But this is not something that I can't get back. My father, although he had things that were going on in his life that prevented him from, being there for me when, I needed him, I still loved him the same. He was a human being. And to be shot in the back while you were just helping at a store, not for money, not for anything, but trying to feed yourself and feed your family. I don't hate anyone. I'm just very, very upset. And today I asked the court just to continue to pray for me and my family. Mike was just selfless. That's all I can say about my father. He was just selfless. I am so, so heartbroken that this happened the way that it happened. I found out my father was murdered via Facebook. And from a Facebook post that somebody posted before I even knew. I still can't fathom the fact to get on social media. I don't have social media. I don't read it. I don't look at it any longer. Just for that reason. But today I do ask the court to support me in getting justice for my father and the things that he was able to do and the person that he was. I didn't know that I had this much strength until I had to bury my father with no help from anyone. It was just drastic. It was terrible to sit in front of a funeral home and people asking you all these questions and my husband tapping my chair because this man is asking me how I'm going to do this and how I'm going to do that, and I couldn't get my words together. And it was just horrible. I've been going through this time and time again over in my head. How? To have an argument for that long, and you could have waited outside. You could have found other measures. You could have fought with your fist. But it's always someone that has nothing to do with the situation that ends up hurt, and then it brings more hurt on the family. Because I have no understanding. That store was a very, very, very small place. When I walked in there, you can't even turn around without being back at the front door. And to unload a gun in a place with 8 or 9 people, I have no understanding. I'll just ask the court to impose a sentence that is fair. That's all I want. It's fair. I'm not asking for death. I'm not asking for anything other than fair. I did lose my father, and it hurts every single day. Grief is not something that you could just wake up and be over. It don't happen like that. I thought I could. But every single day I struggle. And I just asked Judge Gallagher just to be fair. That's all I want. Nothing more, nothing less, just fair. Thank you.
The state is asking this court to impose a sentence that's more than the minimum, that reflects the harm that this defendant inflicted on this community, that you consider the purposes and principles of felony sentencing here and fashion a sentence that doesn't demean the seriousness of these offenses and protects the public and punishes this offender for his conduct, and you take into account his history and the facts and amount of harm that he inflicted in this particular case. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of Mr. Wright.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Can we first address, before we get into the harder matter, is there any dispute with the merger that was proposed by the state of Ohio?
Your Honor, we've had an opportunity to review that issue. It looks pretty straightforward. As it relates to shooting across the roadway, I don't know that there was specific evidence as it relates to additional risk. But we're here, Your Honor, to address the overall picture here, because certainly the court has a tremendous amount of time just in count one. So I don't think we want to get down into the weeds there. But I want to address the court directly your question, Your Honor. But Your Honor, Mr. Wright expresses his condolences to Michael Gunn and his family, Your Honor. He's sorry that we're here and that it's come to this point. He's currently, Your Honor, not on any probation or parole. His last felony goes back probably 6 years. As the court knows, and you've seen through the trial and today in this court, he's got tremendous family support. They've been with him throughout this case, even after the verdict. They continue to support him, Your Honor, and they're here today to support him. We haven't seen any animosity between his family and Mr. Gunn's family. And I know that Mr. Wright expressed his condolences to Michael Gunn's family even when he was arrested, and he continues to do so. Your Honor, we'd ask the court to consider that he's been incarcerated now for 10 months and to give him credit for that. We'd also, Your Honor, ask the court to consider that the minimum sentence in this case, although the word minimum is attached to that, it's certainly a significant sentence. 26 to life means that he is going to be sentenced to life. It's a life sentence. His opportunity, his first opportunity for parole is going to be after 26 years. And that's certainly not a guaranteed thing, and in our experience, not something that is terribly realistic. So we would submit to this honorable court that, considering all the factors and the circumstances, that would be an appropriate sentence, Your Honor. And in addition, Your Honor, we'd ask the court respectfully to order the transcript at the state's expense and appoint appellate counsel, Your Honor. And Mr. Wright is indigent, so we'd ask the court to suspend any fines or court costs, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Wright, would you like to say anything?
I just like to say I send my condolences to the family, although I still say I'm not guilty, but I send my condolences to the family, and I give you all my blessings.
And just so the court understands, you're not guilty because you weren't the one to perpetrate these crimes?
No.
Okay. All right. At this time, I just want to reiterate for the record the counts that the court will sentence on. Those are counts 1, count 6, count 9, count 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 24, and 22. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, Your Honor.
Okay. That's correct on behalf of Mr. Wright.
Yes.
I have considered the purposes and principles of sentencing under revised code sections 292911 and 292912. I've considered Mr. Wright's prior record, which does involve a violent past with robbery, felonious assault, domestic violence, burglary. I've also considered the video that we have and what happened, and really an argument that escalated to gunfire in a store and shots that were fired with no real thought as to who they would harm, and then continuing that even outside the store, shooting into a neighborhood with the possibility of harming other people. Obviously, this is not behavior that we want in our communities, and it's sad for all the parties involved. So we'll start with count 1. I also want to note for the record that all the firearm specifications merged together to the 1 and 3 year will merge into a 3-year firearm specification. With regard to count 1, there is a 3-year firearm specification that has to be served prior to and consecutive to the underlying offense, which is aggravated murder. That aggravated murder count is again a life in prison count with parole eligibility after 30 years. Going to count 6, that is attempted murder. That is a felony of the 1st degree. There is a 3-year firearm specification in that count that has to be served consecutive to the firearm specification in count 3. He will be sentenced to 10 years in count 2.
Count 6, Judge?
I'm sorry, count 6. Turning to count 9, there's also that 3-year firearm specification that has to be served prior to and consecutive to the underlying offense, which is attempted murder, to which he'll be sentenced to 10 years. With regard to count 12, there is that 3-year firearm specification that has to be served prior to and consecutive to the underlying offense, to which he will be sentenced to 10 years. In count 14, there is a 3-year firearm specification that has to be served prior to and consecutive to the underlying offense, to which he will be sentenced to 10 years. Count 16, the 3-year firearm specification must be served prior to and consecutive to the underlying offense, to which he'll be sentenced to 10 years. Count 18, there's a 3-year firearm specification that has to be served prior to and consecutive to the underlying offense, to which he will be sentenced to 10 years. Count 20, there's a 3-year firearm specification that has to be served prior to and consecutive to the underlying offense, to which attempted murder, he'll be sentenced to 10 years. Count 22, discharge of a firearm on or near a prohibited premises. There is a 3-year firearm specification that has to be served prior to and consecutive to the underlying offense.
Judge, there was no firearm specification attached to count 22.
Okay. With count 22, it's still a felony of the first degree. He'll be sentenced to 10 years. With regard to count 24, it's the having weapons under disability. He will be sentenced to 12 months on that count. So the firearm, again, merges the two in count 1 and count 6. That's 6 years of firearm specifications for a total sentence of life in prison with the possibility of parole after 36 years. Parole eligibility is determined on life sentences by the parole board, but in an abundance of caution, I am going to go over Reagan Tokes in the remaining counts, which are counts 6, 9, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, and 22. So I imposed a 10-year sentence on those counts, so that would be the minimum sentence of 10 years. The maximum sentence would be 15 years, which is half of the sentence that I've imposed. And again, this is just precautionary, but there is a presumption that you'd be released after the minimum time is served in those counts. However, ODRC has the legal right under Senate Bill 201 to rebut that presumption and extend your period of confinement for 50% of the term I've imposed. If ODRC makes that decision, you'll be released after the additional time is served. The decision to extend your term in these counts is the sole authority of the ODRC, and they alone make the determination based on such criteria as your conduct while incarcerated, your rehabilitation, the threat they believe you pose to the community, whether any restrictive housing sanctions were imposed on you during your incarceration, as well as your security classification. The ODRC also may choose to make specified determinations and monitor your incarceration more than one time in accordance with ORC 2967.271. Again, I want to make it clear, though, that count 1 does trump those counts, so the parole board will determine when you are eligible for parole once the 36 years have been served. And again, out of abundance of caution, I'll go over the post-release control of these other counts. And that is, with a felony of the first degree, there is a mandatory minimum of 2 years up to a maximum of 5 years of post-release control under conditions determined by the parole board. If you violate the terms and conditions of post-release control, then they could send you back to prison for up to 9 months for each violation of the rules and up to 50% of your stated prison term. You will receive credit for all time served. I'll recognize that you're indigent and waive any court costs. You've requested an appeal. Appellate counsel will be appointed for you based on the list that the Court of Appeals provides. There's a list of assigned attorneys. Anything further for the record?
Yes, Judge, just to be clear, the sentences imposed, other than the 3-year firearm specification for count 6, but the underlying sentence for counts 6, 9, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 24, and 22, are those all concurrent to the sentence on count 1?
And I apologize for not saying that. They will run concurrent. Aside from the firearm specifications, the remaining counts will run concurrent to count 1, with the exception of the firearm specification in count 1 and 6, which are required by law that I run consecutive to each other. Thank you. Anything further on behalf of Mr. Wright?
Just respectfully ask the court to note our objection to any application of rape and toss. Thank you.
It shall be noted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are we adjourned, Judge?
Yes, we are. Thank you.
No reaction for life and never after.